GM.
GM, how we doing?
I am doing good so far. What is up, everybody? So, I am Thomas Bahamas, and I will be leading today. Jack is off today, but welcome back to SolanaFloor Weekly Recap, where we break down Solana's biggest news stories straight from the SolanaFloor newsroom. So, joining me today is the one and only Finn Miller. Finn, how we doing?
Very good, thanks, Tom. How we doing? Very exciting week. I think a lot of good news after a difficult week last week. So very excited to get into everything.
Yes, definitely a little bit more positive sentiment, and had a blast reading your newsletter this morning. So I can't wait to get into it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it is just going to be the two of us holding it down today. So I'm excited to dive into it a little bit deeper. We've got a lot to get through, and yeah, I mean, positive news across the board, pretty much. I'd say, we're definitely seeing security improvements following the unfortunate drift news. Markets are reacting positively to a ceasefire that was kind of dicey there at some times, but there's some really interesting developments going on in Solana that we really do need to chat through. So before we dive into the newsletter, let's quickly take a look. Let's quickly take a look about where we are, because the mood this week was genuinely different this week compared to last week. And I mean that in a good way, right? We're starting to see signs of life in the markets, the ceasefires out of the Middle East. And I mean it's given risk assets a real shot in the arm. So I'm excited about it. S&P's reacted positively, and cryptos followed. And prices are up across the board, right? I think Solana just hit 85 today. Bitcoin's over 71K, ETH at 2.1K. And we're even seeing Zcash on a tear at $377. Zcash is trading like North Korea just found it. Yeah, I mean, more importantly, for the first time in over a month, we're seeing the entire top 10 is actually green on the weekly chart. So, I mean, that really matters for sentiment. I mean, everything feels better when you see some green in the charts. Finn, what's your read from this week?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of that. I think what stands out to me the most is that we've had so much bad news, and a lot of assets they just are actually they're stopping going down when bad news strikes. I think markets are really ready to start going back up. They're ready to have some relief. Anything that even hints at a ceasefire sends all assets back up into the kind of 3 to 4%. Obviously, the ceasefire situation is a bit dicey, like you say. It seems to be it's on 1 hour and then it's off the next. Oil is doing bits all over the place, but ultimately, I think crypto is showing a huge amount of strength against that backdrop. So, look, I think things are trending in the right direction. The DeFi ecosystem is rallying around this hack that we've seen last week. A lot of new security measures are being implemented. Everyone's trying to have a lot more accountability for what's happening on chain. So I'm feeling very optimistic. This idea that DeFi is dead, I think, is a bit over exaggerated.
Yeah, I think it always feels like that after an event like this happens. But I mean, it's good to see. I think that there definitely is a lot more like positivity on the timeline. I think that there's some good steps being taken, and I think that we're going to rally together and keep this going. So definitely excited about that. We did have a live stream yesterday with the big picture. It was me and Jack. We had Mike Reed from Franklin Templeton on, and it always blows my mind how bullish the like industry is, like how bullish traditional finance is on crypto. They've taken a big stance on being very pro crypto and pro Solana. So he was, an SVP. He's head of digital assets there, and I left that conversation feeling pretty bullish, right? I always get excited when we talk to TradFi because it seems like a lot of the sentiment that we see on the timeline isn't shared by them. So I don't know what your thoughts are there, but definitely leaves me feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's refreshing to see, that the cries of CT are actually might be wrong in this case, and that the people who are actually moving the institutional capital that really runs the world are a lot more bullish than we are. I think on one hand, you can take that as a vote of confidence. What was your biggest takeaway from that conversation with Mike Reed? If there was one thing that people could hear that might kind of help them make good decisions in the months coming forward, what was the guiding light from that?
Yeah, I mean, what really hit me is like how like they're thinking for the long term, right? He kept saying like, yes, like short term sentiment could be bad, but his company, his investors, they're all thinking about the incredibly like long term. They're thinking in years, not days or months. Um, and I mean that kind of hits hard for all of us in crypto because you look at a 15-minute chart, things might look bad. You look at the headlines and they're scary. You look at I feel like there's a lot of like doom and gloom that gets a lot of traction, especially on Twitter. So I feel like that type of stuff can easily derail you. But if you kind of stick to the data, look at what they're actually doing, it just left me feeling pretty good about where we're at.
Yeah, and I think that's echoed by a lot of what was included in the newsletter this week. So I'm going to bring that up on screen now. So what we have here is the intro. As we mentioned, one of the largest stories is obviously the DeFi sector rallying around this new initiative from the Solana Foundation. A really tremendous effort, I think, to make sure that Solana DeFi is as safe as possible. That's been also backed up by updates like Camino's whitelisted reserve. So really fantastic things happening across the ecosystem there. Beyond that, we're seeing Titans coming out with a new router. Manifest is bringing TradFi's favorite tools, option markets, into the on-chain economy, and pre-stocks is absolutely exploding in volume. So if people want to get exposure to Anthropic, SpaceX, and all these private equity companies before their IPO, that is now possible. It's been possible for months, but it seems like people are only starting to catch up with that fact now. So we're going to crack straight into the newsletter, Thomas. What are you most excited about of these kind of stories that are ahead of us? What's the one that's really standing out to you that you're most excited to get into?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love the newsletter. I like all of them, but I mean, I'm really excited about the Solana Foundation's reaction to the drift hack. I think that everybody's kind of feeling a little out of place. What do we do? Uncertainty is like incredibly high, especially when it comes to DeFi. So to put together like a pretty solid foundation for security protocols, have something that they can point people to get them in the right direction. I think everyone's going to be better off for it. So I'm excited to see that. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm very excited about a lot of the new DeFi things we're seeing. So with the option markets, with Titan's new router, I think against this dark cloud of the hack, there's still a lot of really cool things happening in DeFi, and I think it's a sign of great progress. No one's letting their head get too far down. People are keeping their chins up, and we're going to keep on striving forward. So let's dive straight into this first story here. Headline is: Solana Foundation launches security standard to safeguard DeFi in wake of $285 million drift exploit. So as we mentioned last week, obviously absolute chaos, $285 million lost in the drift exploit. No one wants to hear that. I think one of the good things that came out of this were all the conversations around how can we be better. And the Solana Foundation, hats off to them, has stepped up, they've stepped forward, and they've come out with a two-armed initiative. The first side of this is Stride, which essentially provides teams with a structured program for evaluating and monitoring security practices. They're teaming up with Asymmetric Research, who obviously have been in the industry for a very long time. And this is a way of measuring every single application on Solana and providing ongoing OPSEC and active threats so that basically every app can be as safe as possible. Asymmetric Research has broken this down into 8 pillars of good security standards. We've got program security, governance and access control, Oracle and dependency risk, infrastructure security, supply chain security, operational security, monitoring and incident response, and log management and forensics. There's also a bit more going on to this. So every app that passes this standard will get active threat monitoring, which is fantastic. And for the heavyweights of Solana DeFi, apps that have 100 million TVL plus, the foundation is also going to sponsor formal verification costs. So for me, this is Solana Foundation stepping forward, planting their flag in Solana DeFi and saying, we're going to tighten up the screws everywhere we can. We're going to support everyone who wants to make their apps as tight as possible. And I think it's a great step in the right direction. Thomas, do you think that this is something that needed to be done a long time ago? Do you think that we're probably a bit late to getting this set up? What's your overall pulse check on this?
Yeah, I don't know. It would be hard to just go and start doing this proactively, right? You almost kind of need an incident to build security protocols for this. So I think that Solana DeFi has come a long way. Leading up to this, we haven't seen anything on, a major scale, any sort of major incident like this in a while. So I think that Solana DeFi was doing great, and I think that it still is, right? So I think for them to put forth this, it's huge, right? This isn't, and I think the best part about this is it doesn't feel like a PR move. Like you would expect some sort of PR statement, but this is like there's structure behind this, and I think it's a genuine improvement.
Yeah, and like the more we learn about it, the more we learn about this recent drift hack, the more we see that obviously smart contract security is ultimately better than it's ever been. You know, we've got amazing security teams like Certora, like Odyssey, like all these teams that are doing a really good job of running audits and making sure that the code itself is actually bulletproof. And what everyone's realized recently is that the biggest risk to the on-chain economy, the biggest risk to DeFi itself is actually human error, right? So every hack that's been happening recently is pretty much due to key compromisation. It's due to social engineering and people making mistakes. I think if this initiative can help people reduce those surface areas and reduce those attack vectors, everybody's going to win in this long term. So
Yeah.
the response has been incredibly overwhelmingly positive as well, as you'd expect. Stepan here from Squads has said, this is an example of truly great ecosystem leadership from the foundation. Squads is joining Siren as a founding member while continuing to help strengthen Solana's security through multisig and beyond. So Siren is the incident response network that Solana's been that the foundation, has thrown together, which basically pulls together a bunch of elite security firms so that in the event that another incident happens, there's another attack, all these contributing memberships and teams, they're all going to be sharing information. They're going to be sharing threats and intelligence, and basically helping teams in the midst of a devastating hack to kind of shore up the defenses as best as they can and move forward as best as they can.
Yeah.
Beyond
Yeah. And
that, we have seen. No, sorry, go on, Thomas.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, one thing that you did mention there was that the threat from social engineering has grown so much. I think Seth from Certora, he was on a Spaces with us, and he said that it's about 50-50, right? Social engineering is up there with smart contract risk at this point. So to have that angle that, I wasn't even thinking about, and that is just as important as the actual smart contracts that you're dealing with. It's crazy that it's come to that point. So for us to realize that and work that into our protocols, I think is going to be massive.
Yeah. And I think one of the other things that has come out of this overarching story generally is that people aren't aware just how deeply that malicious actors and North Korean hackers are integrated and kind of intertwined in the DeFi system that we have already. There's been stories coming out about certain employees who have been involved in 4 or 5 different teams. I think Stable had to announced their emergency response to kind of tell people to remove liquidity because they were investigating a potential issue. People are feeling a bit trigger happy. People are feeling a bit on edge about all of this. So I think the most we can do to kind of align this and make sure that the foundation is setting standards that everyone can follow. It's a tremendous step forward in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. And it just goes to kind of like the fact that anytime there is a lot of money involved, there is a lot of greed and there is a lot of people going after that money. So, no matter what you do, people are, going to find new ways to get after you, right?
Yeah. And also under the same umbrella, hats off to Camino for their new whitelisted reserves product. Again, that's fantastic. That means that on all the curated vaults on Camino, if in the terrible event that a malicious actor gets access to the vault, they're only able to allocate or withdraw funds to whitelisted reserves that Camino has set aside specifically. So it's again another step in the right direction. It's putting in safety guardrails on over $500 million of deposits. So well done, Camino, for throwing that together as well. I'm going to push on ahead, Thomas, to the next story here, and we can start getting into some very, very exciting, fun DeFi news. So the headline here is pre-stock success on Solana drives total tokenized pre-IPO trading volume to 544 million. So this is fantastic. Pre-stocks are absolutely ripping. We can see in this chart here that, after a pretty slow start towards the end of last year, not a huge amount of volume, we've seen in February and in March especially, people are loving private equity placements in crypto. So pre-stocks, if you don't know, this is similar to X-stocks in the sense that it's tokenized the equity of pre-IPO firms. So that's companies like SpaceX, Anthropic, OpenAI, things like that. And in the same way that you can hold price exposure to X-stocks, you can get now price exposure to pre-IPO assets, which is appearing to do really, really well. So we've seen Anthropic in terms of value has absolutely rocketed, and since that went live, some traders have netted a few millions off that as well. But there are some hiccups on this because obviously holders of pre-stocks don't have any legal ownership rights or any shareholder governance rights. But Thomas, do you think this is one of the more exciting things of Solana DeFi in 2026? Do you think there's a higher ceiling to this than what we're seeing already?
Yeah, I think 100%. I think this is an amazing use of crypto in general, I think, and it's a fantastic product for people. Like you can't really get access or exposure to a lot of these private companies up until IPO, which it's generally, depending on how the IPO goes, a lot of times that's the top, right? So, to give access to the public at the top is just not a good system. So, I think that this is a better system, and I think we're seeing the success, and we continue to see it. We were talking about how Anthropic, the price of it has just been going up. So if you were able to get exposure to this earlier on, you're doing fantastic. And I think there's a couple of wallets, that have made over $1 million on it so far. So I mean, I think this is an angle that I need to look at more. And I mean, if once we get that into DeFi and we have composability, I think that there's a lot there. I know that's something that you were hoping for.
Yeah, look, my speculative bone quite likes these pre-stocks because I don't imagine there's a whole lot of sell pressure because ultimately, if you're holding these pre-stocks, you're speculating on them, eventually being worth more at IPO time. And something we've seen happen quite a lot is that as these private companies do more valuations, they do more raises, they go through, a Series A, Series B, Series C, the valuation actually just gets higher and higher. So the backing for these assets generally trends upwards. And the demand is extremely palpable. So I was checking this earlier. The Anthropic pre-stock actually trades at a 40% premium to its most recent valuation. So people are falling hand over fist to get their hands onto this. Anthropic has hinted that they might be doing an IPO later this year. So people are willing to pay premium just to have potential exposure to that event. I'm looking forward to seeing more pre-stocks come on. And I think with the poly markets there as well, probably wanting a bit more liquidity on that. But I think, yeah, the ceiling on this is exceptionally high, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a bit more DeFi integration with these as well. So obviously, other tokenized equities, X stocks, for example, you can borrow against them, you can lend them out. They're a bit more composable. I'm really hoping that we see pre-stocks go the same way. What else have we got here? Yeah, so it's part of a larger move as well. Like we've seen tokenized stock volumes have absolutely ripped. It's become Solana has become the home of tokenized stock. So plenty of exciting stuff there as well. And Jupiter has also enabled limit orders on these as well.
Yeah. Do you think that those are gonna? I see these as like a pretty massive improvement on access to exposure of these stocks before, right? So I view this as a way that we could onboard a lot new people. Hey, if you want exposure, check these out on Solana. Like, come on chain, and you'll be able to get access to it. Like, I'm genuinely excited about the prospect of this.
Yeah, and I think also it's a lot more palatable to a retail audience than something like meme coins. We step away from this idea of financial nihilism and we come back to something that is a bit more grounded in reality. Getting exposure to private equity companies is something that not everyone really has access to. And this was admittedly one of my biggest hangups when pre-stocks first launched, because the whole point of private equity and the whole point of these pre-IPO assets is that they're very exclusive. And if I can buy them on chain, then all of a sudden that kind of exclusivity premium is gone. But I've been proven wrong because, like we said, Anthropic's done really, really well since that pre-stock has launched. Yeah, I think the desire for these assets is stronger than that rationality that kind of backs the price, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of these companies are speculative too, so it's not like there's no like free risk on it or anything. But I mean, when you look at a company like Anthropic, where they're top of the news with their latest release, it seems like they're absolutely crushing it. Looking like they might raise like somewhere on like just under $1 trillion, for their actual IPO. It's like I would love to have some exposure to that, and to be able to do that on Solana, I think is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the missing piece in the ultimate Solana portfolio. I think we've got everything. We've got DeFi, we've got RWAs, we've got meme coins. I think deeper liquidity on pre-IPO assets is the next ceiling. I'm going to come back to the newsletter, and we're going to keep pushing through. So third story on the list, we have Titan Exchange promises 4x Binance outperformance through new Dart router. This is staggering. I am a very big fan of this new product, or this new update for Titan. So essentially what we've got here is that Titan has released a new on-chain router instead of the former routing engines that we've seen across Solana over the years have been limited to a much smaller array of venues, and typically they go to one venue and they swap between a couple of pools on that same venue to get the best price. Now we've seen already Solana DeFi has done incredibly well in terms of execution. In many cases, swapping Sol for stablecoins through prop premiums has become the most effective way and the most price efficient way to get exposure to Sol, or to sell out of it. Titan's taken that even further. So Dart is allegedly getting people a 4x better price execution than Binance's highest VIP tier. That's unbelievable, because for many years we've heard that DeFi execution is terrible, and that's why no one trades there. Everyone who wants to be trading in the best possible environments, they always do it on sexes. That's no longer the case. Extremely exciting. Thomas, I know you're a big Titan user. You were telling me earlier that it's one of probably your go-to venue for large swap sizes. How are you feeling about this update, first of all?
Yeah, so I'm feeling fantastic about the update. I mean, seeing what a lot of the transactions that Chris has been posting, like the way that these are routing is unbelievable. And I mean, we've already been talking about how Solana has better execution than the majority of centralized exchanges. And this is pushing that even farther, where Binance's highest tier, I think you have to have like 10 million or $100 million to join that tier, where it's like you can just do that on Solana. Like you don't need that anymore. It's becoming, I mean, Solana is becoming the best place in the world to trade like any sort of digital asset, and you can do it on chain and everybody can access it. Like I love everything about this, and Titan's really changed the game. I was telling you, anytime I do, a swap over, $100, I'm going directly to Titan. And the reason for that is like the execution is fantastic. Like I don't fully understand how you get like positive MEV back, but I did a swap the other day and I was telling you, and I made money off of the swap. Like I'm not sure if that's the way that they want to advertise how that works, but I mean, if you look at what you can get, I mean, just put a transaction into Titan versus, any centralized exchange, you'll see the fees that you were going to get. Like, I'm in the US, so I would look at Coinbase's fees before. This is like, 3-4 years ago, and it's like, why would people swap on Coinbase and pay this much, and like pay that much money, where you could just do it on Solana? Now it's like, I don't even bother with that. I don't bother with any centralized exchange if I'm going to. And I think people are going to catch on to this, right? Like this is something that has been a big narrative probably over the last year. I mean, the whole prop AMM like value is really coming to light, right? So I'm really excited about this. I think that this is going to play a big part of Solana's future, is being like the spot venue for trading any digital asset, right?
Yeah, that is the internet capital markets thesis. And I think
Yeah.
if you want to see this in action, if you want to see the efficiency of this new Dart router, go check out Chris Chung's Twitter account. He's the co-founder of Titan. They've been retweeting a lot of some swaps that they found where people are getting absolutely incredible execution. They're paying 2 bips, I think, on maybe even less. Yeah, it might even be like a fraction of a bip on some of these very large swaps. So it's very exciting to see. It's been compared to Nasdaq's BBO. We can see a few kind of tests that have been run here by people from across the ecosystem. So it's not just Titan banging on about this. People from Ghost Logs have also been extremely complimentary, and it's kind of the cherry on the cake for a very strong quarter for Titan. So Titan obviously competing in a difficult market, let's say. Jupiter has been dominating the DEX aggregator sector for a very long time, and obviously Jupiter has a fantastic product, but Titan is starting to actually eat away at that. Titan was being outclassed by OKX and DFlow for January and February, and throughout March they've actually eclipsed that volume share. sitting at about 7.38% there. So look, Titan is on the rise. They've just added limit orders. They've just added private swaps as well. So lots happening there for Titan. Very, very excited to see where they go next.
Yeah, yeah, me too. They've been absolutely crushing it. Good team. Look forward to seeing them keep going up. So, with that said, should we move on to Manifest?
Yes, more great DeFi perks. Let me come back to the newsletter here. So, title of the story is Manifest launches option markets on Solana in collaboration with Dual Finance. Look, this is a great step in the right direction. Obviously, options are one of TradFi's favorite derivative instruments. They are quite complex. Let's not beat around the bush here. I think the average Solana DeFi participant probably just prefers to buy and sell and do simple swaps. But I think this new product from Manifest is going to introduce a whole new way of trading tokens on Solana. I think what's most impressive is that it's not limited to just Sol or just USDC. Manifest has said in some of the material around this that any SPL token counts, and it gives traders a whole new way of going against the market, going with the market. They can express their opinions on prices in a variety of different ways now. I think it's great progress. And again, an awesome quarter for Manifest. So what do you think, Thomas, is the big unlock for this idea of having options on chain finally?
So, I don't use options, right? Like I don't fully understand them. Like I understand perps exchanges. That seems to make more sense to me. However, I think this is a good trend because I think what we've been seeing when people are coming on chain, new people are being onboarded, they're not using our venues, right? Like they don't necessarily want to trade, meme coins and NFTs or do what we're doing on chain. They want to do what they know already and they want to be able to do that on chain, right? So I think that this opens up a different venue for people that maybe aren't necessarily going to be trading perps and they understand options better. I think that that's something that is like a lot more people understand options than they do perps probably. So when they come on chain, this is probably what they want to do. So to give them that option, I mean, why not? I think it's big, and I think that kind of goes into a lot of what Solana's done is like, hey, whatever you want to do on chain, like we'll give you that option. So I think it's big, but I mean, will I personally be using them, and could I tell you exactly how these options work? No, probably not. Right.
Mm. I think it's a good example of a mature and traditional financial tool being used on Solana and kind of coming over to the chain where everything is happening.
Yeah.
We've seen on EVM chains these options products have done quite well. I think Derive has had about $1.8 billion in monthly notional volume. For me, I see options as almost like a more complicated way of trading perps. But again, it's a completely different utility. There's a different range of things you can do with it. And the more tools we have to navigate markets, I think on chain is even better. Again, as we said with Titan, it's been a very, very strong quarter for Manifest as well. Manifest, one of my favorite apps, not gonna lie, gonna throw them some flowers. They've been growing their market share extremely well. Start of the year, they were kind of managing around, I think, 2% of spot DEX volume generally on any given day. They've raised that to about 7.3% in the last days recently. So almost a 3x in market share, a good kind of 5 percentage point increase overall. And most of that, Thomas, which I find fascinating, is actually coming from stablecoin swaps. So Manifest, as we know, spot club DEX, which means you place your limit orders, it executes at exactly that moment instead of just going to an aggregator and punting in as much Sol or USD as you want. Manifest is leading the entire chain on stablecoin spot volume. And I think, again, a very good sign of maturity. This used to be something that was completely dominated by meme coin volume. As that's changed, as meme coin activity has dropped off, people are turning more towards traditional assets like stablecoins, like RWAs, and Manifest is capturing a lot of that volume right now. So very, very exciting for Manifest.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an interesting market to go after. In my mind, that would be probably one of the last things that I would go after. It doesn't sound like the most interesting, but I would assume that we're going to continue to see, new stable coins pop up. That everybody on Solana for the most part uses USDC, but I would assume that other stablecoins are going to start chipping away at that. So to have, a really, really good market for that is a great idea. And I mean, we're probably this is probably early innings for them. But yeah, I mean, Manifest has been crushing it. I think they also offer free limit orders as well, where they're like they're not charging anything for them. So I think that the product speaks for itself in the adoption.
Yeah, and also I think a big part of that growing stablecoin volume that they're having is largely due to their Destiny vaults or these tokenized liquidity positions. Since Manifest launched these back in January, their TVL has risen by about 343%. So they're starting to get really, really thick books for stablecoins, and that's where trades are now routing because that's where people are getting the best execution. And so Manifest is probably just going to keep doing Manifest things, and they're going to keep growing in that same trajectory. So well done to them. Obviously, I think I don't know if options markets are going to take off in the short term. I think it's one of those things that people need to see working before they start, playing with it and start allocating capital to that. It might be a few months, it could be a year before we start seeing really meaningful options markets volume. But again, as with anything, I think once we start seeing some good P&Ls, once we start seeing some good educational content on how it works, I think the ceiling on where this can go is extremely high. So
Yeah, and they
keep your eye
partnered.
on that.
Oh, sorry there.
No, go on. I'd
Oh,
finished.
yeah, I was gonna say they partnered with Dual Finance, who they've been around for a while. Like I remember, I think I farmed one of the bonk airdrops a long time ago, and you had to set up a position in Dual Finance a couple years ago. So it's good to see them still around, and it's good to see them coming out with this product.
Yeah, and good to see them obviously integrating with teams like Manifest who are doing great things. I'm gonna flip us back to the newsletter here, and we're gonna push on ahead. So
All right.
story number 5 this week: Solana ecosystem token unlocks. What to watch in April 2026. So this is the start of a new trend we're going to be running on SolanaFloor for a while. Every month we're going to write up a big list on all the tokens that are unlocking in the month ahead, so that people can be aware of what's being emitted, what tokens are unlocking, and where is more money flowing into the ecosystem from. So the biggest one over the course of April is obviously Trump coin. So we've got around, I think, 271 million Trump being distributed over the coming month. A huge amount, millions per day. Frankly, this is surprising because obviously it coincides with the meme coin conference that's being held on April 25 for the Trump family, which I believe Donnie himself will be attending. Some other notable ones that we've got here: we've got DBR distributing out a pretty good amount, around $8 million there. Yeezy token. I'm surprised to see that here. I'm surprised that people are still moving this one around, still trading it. Thomas, we were chatting about Yeezy before it came on. Like, is this still a live token? Do you think people are actively watching these unlocks to try and make a profit, or trying to short it or borrow against it? Do you think there's much going on here?
I have no idea what is going on with this Yeezy coin. Like I tried to look into it, and I have no idea whether Kanye is actually involved or not, right? He just released a new album. So I was looking at his Twitter, and I was like, all right, what's going on with the Yeezy coin? And he still has a video up of him talking about it. And it was supposed to be some sort of bank. So I don't know what is going on with the Yeezy coin. I would love to hear more. If you're on the Yeezy team, please reach out to us. Let's hear some more from that. But it does seem like they are, releasing a lot of tokens coming out pretty soon. So I would speculate that Kanye is not involved, and a team is taking advantage, or not, maybe not taking advantage. Maybe that's the wrong word, but is using his name pretty well at this point.
I do remember that he did appear in a brief little video with Ansem when they were sitting in a movie theater talking about blockchain. So maybe it's more legit than we would be led to believe.
Yeah, it just seems like if he was involved, he would be talking about it all the time. Like if Kanye wants to be heard, he can be heard very well,
Yeah, yeah, and
regardless of what he's saying.
yeah, and like as we've seen, a lot of celebrities who launch meme coins, they don't really want to be attached to those meme coins for more than a few hours. So I don't think that Kanye would be an exception to that fact.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the fact that we're still even talking about it this long after it launched is something, right? Most meme coins last a day or two, or the celebrity ones especially, if they make it that far. So that's 1 point for Kanye on that.
Yeah. I want to come back to this Trump thing. So, obviously, a huge amount of Trump coins being emitted over the course of the month. Every time there's a big unlock on Trump coins, we generally get some kind of announcement for some gala dinner or some meme coin conference. How long do you think that Trump is actually going to be tagged along with this meme coin? Do you think there's a hidden contract somewhere, and eventually he can completely disassociate. If you were to speculate on the ties between this coin and the man himself, how deep do you think they go?
I mean, I assume they don't go very deep at all. Like, in my mind, a lot of this was like maybe Trump family originally set it up, and then there's a team behind it, and he just said yes, right? Like, I really don't think that he is that involved. I mean, obviously, it's got his name. Like, I don't even know if, like, can you promote a meme coin as a president? Like, I mean, they've there's just been like a ton of like grift out of a lot of, Trump's inner circle. And I think that like the meme coin and even like what we're seeing with like World Liberty Finance, it's like
Yeah.
it's disheartening as somebody in crypto to see this, like for all the good that's happening, to just look at a Trump coin and him holding a meme coin gala, it's hard to square those two. But that's what they're doing. I don't imagine he does these for that long, but every time there's an unlock, I mean, you got to buy the tokens to go to the dinner, and people do.
Yeah, well, Justin's son went, then I think his case got thrown out in the weeks following. So obviously, there's a very clear incentive for people who want to be involved in that. I can't
Incredible
help but
utility.
notice we don't have a Melania conference. At least the Trump coin has kind of tried to keep things going and tried to provide some utility. I feel like the Melania coin has just kind of completely died out, and no one's trying to save that anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it was the Melania coin that just, like, destroyed everything, right? It was like that coin came out, Solana slowed down, and everything just tanked since then.
Yeah, that was the inflection point. That was actually the beginning of the end, and it just took us 10 months to realize.
Yeah, yeah, it really did. I wish that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think we all do. Um, Pushing on, one last story for the week. Story number 6. The title is Solana trading terminal volume slumps to lowest point since September 2023. Thomas, I was blown away when I saw this chart. Obviously, we know that meme coin activity has been on the decline. It's been on the decline for a while. I was shocked to see that it's at the lowest point since 2023. It feels like a very, very long time ago that we were sitting there in September 2023, trading almost entirely on BonkBot from memory. It was all running through Telegram, it was all running through phones on BonkBot. I believe that was also when the Bonk and Solana saga airdrop went out the first time. That kind of kickstarted this whole thing. So look, it's been a steadily declining field for these trading terminals. That's obviously is due mainly to the decline of the meme coin economy. Overarching, Thomas, do you think there's a way back for these trading terminals? Do you think that they go back to these highs that we've seen in previous months, or do you think that they're going to continue to kind of bleed out and no one's ever going to come back and start using these en masse again?
I think it depends. I mean, if I don't think meme coins are going away. I don't think we get like the turbo meme coin super cycle again, but we very well could, right? And in the event that we do, they're going to start using these terminals again, right? Like if Solana ever gets congested again and you need a terminal to get a transaction through, you can. But to pay a couple dollars for a transaction on Solana when you don't need to, it's pointless, right? So yes, you might be able to monitor the situation better, using like an Axiom, or it might be a little bit easier to buy through Telegram, but you don't need to do that anymore. Um, and I mean, we're still seeing, decent volume on some of the meme coins too. So I'm wondering if it's just a terminal thing or if it's, both terminals and meme coins going down.
Yeah, and like it looks really bad on the graph. Obviously, you see how high these charts go, back in months past, and you see where they're at now, and it looks really bad. But at the same time, Axiom and Photon, they're still making 300K a day. That's
Yeah.
still There's still a lot of liquidity flowing through there. There's still a lot of volume. People haven't given up on the trenches as much as people love to say that on-chain trading is dead. It's all just people farming each other, and it's an extremely PvP environment. People are still using these at an incredible click. To what I mentioned earlier, stablecoins are now actually eclipsing meme coin volume. So I'm going to roll down a wee bit further here, and we can see historically, meme coins have completely dominated Solana's DEX landscape. In years past, meme coins were around 50 to 60% of all on-chain volume. Surprisingly, that's actually being eaten away by stablecoins at this point. So this dark green set of bars here is representing the growing market share of stablecoins. It's now the second largest pair category of all on-chain assets on Solana, which for me, honestly, is staggering. It tells me that obviously things are becoming a lot more mature on chain. You know, we're moving away from this get rich quick meme coin speculation, and we're heading more into, you know, high frequency payments, PayFi, stablecoin arbitrage. It's a very, very mature ecosystem. I think it's leading towards good signs. Do
I
you
think
think
it's
that some of the,
exciting.
yeah,
I'm actually pretty excited to see that, right? Like I think that the meme coins were kind of overblown. You know, like our Twitter feeds were just like people shilling their coins. Like it kind of got to a pretty dark place. So I think that when we're seeing a lot more of the stablecoin volume, we're seeing like, you know, traditional finance companies in this. We're seeing, you know, PayPal using it. We're seeing a lot more, you know, like you said, the maturity of the industry. And I think it's bullish, but I also, you know, the flip side of that is I don't think meme coins will ever go away. You know, like I'm I'm no longer gonna fight it. I'm just like okay with meme coins being there. I'm not in the trenches. I'm not buying meme coins, but I mean it has enough resilience at this point where I don't think, you know, there's going to be ups and downs, but I don't think any of it's going to go away. And I think another part of this too is like, you know, I was thinking DeFi, you know, people might be a little bit scared of using some DeFi protocols, but when you're actually trading in the trenches, like there isn't as big of security risks, right? Like you're not using like a DeFi protocol, you're not, you know, LPing tokens, you're just swapping a lot, right? Like it's like a pretty straightforward. People use it, they swap and they swap out to their bank accounts, right? So like there's like a I don't know how to properly describe that, but it's like it's almost a little bit more secure of like a part of the ecosystem just because you're not doing that much on chain.
yeah, and I think it's also is there's a lot less locked up liquidity. You know, I think it's a lot of smaller accounts moving funds at you know, at incredible volume, at incredible velocity, but it's quite unlike the drift hack in the sense that there's not a staggering amount of capital. There's not, you know, $300 million sitting there, just, you know, providing yield. So I think, yeah, it would be less of a, you know, horrific incident if something would happen within within these terminals. Something I want your opinion on though, Thomas, is that do you think that all these trading terminals, after making so much money off traders over the course of the year, do you think they owe these people something? Is it time for all these apps to start doing airdrops and to start, you know, giving back to the people a little bit more? We've got this great tweet from Fabian on here that he actually put out a couple of weeks ago, but I think it's relevant. You know, Trojan, Photon, Bullix, Axiom, all these apps started their airdrop campaigns over a year ago. Some have even pushed 2 years there. Is it time for, you know, users to actually get rewarded for these? Are they overdue?
Yeah, I mean, they promised it, they might as well do it, but I don't see any of them really going that well at this point, right? You know, like what are they going to get out of it for actually releasing their token? I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, if you commit to making the airdrop, you should probably make the airdrop. Um, but yeah, I mean, they've made incredible amounts of money, right? Like
Mm.
like Axiom made $100 million in like less than a month, I think was their original numbers. So the amount of money that they made and continue to make is incredible. And I mean, kind of the crypto spirit is you know, you give some of that back to the users. So would be nice to see that, but I don't think an airdrop from any of them is going to save the trenches or bring back all the meme coins, but it would do right by the customers, right?
Yeah, I think it wasn't 100 million a month. The stat I have is it was 300 million in the first 263 days. So
Okay.
that's a run rate of, you know, let's do some napkin math, probably about 100 million every 3 months or so. You know, compared to now in the last quarter, they've only made 60 million. So they have dropped significantly in terms of how much money they're making, but obviously they're still making a tremendous amount of money. I think probably what still is lingering for a lot of people is that uh, these apps, they're kind of in a hostage situation, right? Like they need to keep promising an airdrop to attract users, but as soon as they actually deliver on that, all these users are going to go somewhere else to farm them. So obviously, it's in their interest to try and extend that campaign for as long as possible, but it is almost like a bit of a Damocles sword holding over their head for the moment.
Yeah, and I don't know what the best way through that is, right? They kind of put themselves in this situation by promising an airdrop, and they're pulling a margin fi, and just continuously holding it off, which continues getting them users. But I would assume that the best thing for all the users of their platforms is like to have them compete like with the actual product rather than the promise of a better airdrop. So I don't know if this is the best way for, the ecosystem in general.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is probably going to continue to exist, and obviously we're always going to have points programs, we're always going to have airdrop campaigns, but people do need to be rewarded at some point, or they're going to lose faith in the model and it's going to stop working. So we'll get there eventually. Thomas, I'm going to come back to the newsletter and we're going to push on through honorable mentions.
Okay.
Looking forward to hearing what your favorite is here. I know I've got mine, but I'm going to rip through them now. So coming at the top, Camino launches whitelisted reserves to safeguard vaults against compromised keys. Solana powers 88% of MoonPay commerce volume. Nasdaq listed currency group tokenizes stock on Solana via Securitize. Jump Crypto hosts a $1 million immune fi audit competition to audit Fidance's V1 code base. Sol Strategies acquires Dark Lake, a zero knowledge infrastructure layer. And Solana monthly P2P stablecoin volume hits 192 billion in March, a new monthly all-time high. I've got my favorite. Thomas, what stands out to you here?
I mean, we got to go with $192 billion in P2P stablecoins. That's unreal. Like this is happening right now. And this is something that I think a lot of people, in the Solana community aren't necessarily following, right? Is how big of a story that is and how big, stablecoins are. So that's definitely what I'm thinking. What about you?
Mine for me, it's got to be Camino's new whitelisted reserves. We mentioned them earlier at the top of the live stream. This is obviously a great step in the right direction. Camino is Solana's largest source of DeFi TVL. They've been audited 6 times. They've got full verification. They're probably one of the safest apps on Solana, and they're still committed to actually pushing this even further. Whitelisted reserves is a step again in the right direction to protect that capital, and it fights against what is now the biggest issue, which is key compromisation, social engineering, and all that follows with that. So look, Camino is obviously bulletproof on the smart contract side. It's working towards being bulletproof on the human error side as well. So for me, that's the most important. It's my favorite honorable mention this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to push down a bit more. So you released this video earlier this week on what's happening again in the AI economy. So obviously, agentic AI on Solana is booming. You've been keeping a very, very close eye on this. Do you want to give me kind of a quick recap of what were your biggest takeaways from writing this video and releasing this from your research?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm just incredibly bullish on everything AI and crypto right now. So I'm doing a 3-part series. This was part one that we released. And part two talks a lot more about, what people are actually doing as far as like autonomous trading, which is fascinating, right? So like I feel like it's a pretty big push so far from the Solana Foundation and from Solana in general to onboard, agentic trading or using agents to pay other agents. Like, if you're sending an agent out to research something and it's paywalled, you can actually just use this protocol called X402 where it automatically would pay a couple cents and then you get the data. Like, I think a lot of it is a better internet and a more fair way to get data rather than, having like a full API or a full paywall up to block data. So I think that that's really interesting. And I think that you know, the two most powerful and changing technologies are, crypto and AI. So the combination of them is really interesting. And, AI, you're not going to give a credit card to an AI to pay for things, right?
No.
So I think that there's really good use cases for crypto. And I mean, a lot of what we're seeing too is like computers understand crypto better than people do. Like private keys are hard to manage. Wallet addresses, they're way too long to memorize. Where it's like all of that is like that's normal computer talk, right? So these AI agents completely understand that, and I think that what we're going to see is a lot more crypto transactions done by agents. So it's super exciting, and the more I dig into it, like the more I am bullish on it.
It's that eternal question that we're having now is, what if crypto wasn't made for humans? What if it was actually made for AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the most exciting vertical that we're going to have probably in the next year or so. It's where everyone's eyes are on at the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, narrative wise, Solana plays into this super well, right? Agents don't care about ETH alignment or they don't care about using Bitcoin, right? Like they just want to use a system that works. And as of right now, Solana is the only system, or crypto that actually can support them, right? And we're seeing, they use USDC on Solana. They use Base sometimes, but a lot of these transactions are, I think the average size is 6 cents. So every little quarter penny, eats at their profit, and like they don't care. They're just going to choose the quickest and the cheapest. So they're choosing Solana for a lot of these. So if you look at a lot of like the adoption graphs, like Solana is taking over, even though X402 was invented by Coinbase and was
Mhm.
launched on Base. The Solana's consistently been ranked the highest. So it's fun to watch. And I mean, it's just interesting to see what people are building. I like Solana is the foundation's like, hey, here are all these tools. And a lot of the different protocols on Solana, they're offering tools too. So they're like, hey, here, do stuff with it. And no, like I can't find like all the protocols that are putting them together at this point. Right. So it's kind of like it's kind of like they're giving people tools and go play with them. So like one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm building an autonomous trading agent right now. And
Let's
that's going to
go.
be part 3 is going to be like my agent losing my money and me talking about it probably. But I think it's a really interesting time. And it's like, I think right now, a lot of the Solana community is actually really like ahead of a lot of this. Like you mentioned Bonkbot earlier, like trading through Telegram. Like I think that that's kind of like the first stage, and then you move on to terminals, and then you'll move on to like more autonomous trading strategies where it's like you don't have to do anything, right? Like you do all the research, make the trades, and whoever gets to doing that first is going to have a big advantage. So I think
Mhm.
a lot of people that are in the Solana community should embrace it more.
Yeah, but also it's one of those funny things that like it's only a huge success if trading bots actually end up making money. If you end up losing money on a trading bot, then actually this turns out to be nothing burger, no one cares. But if agentic trading bots start making money, then that's when it actually generally becomes quite interesting. Um, we're going to push on through to the final stat of the week. As our good friend Jack likes to say, his favorite moment. So for me, the stat of the week, we touched on it earlier, but stablecoin swaps are the second largest trading pair category on Solana, eating away at former meme coin dominance. So again, a step in the right direction. We're going away from this hyper speculative meme coin casino. Stablecoins are becoming the bread and butter and the lifeblood of the chain. Thomas, what are your thoughts here? Good thing, bad thing?
I think it's a good thing. Do you think that this is people like going risk off, like trading into stables as, the market's, showing a bunch of uncertainty and, in a bull market this decreases? Or do you think that this is something that's just going to continuously go up?
I think it continues going up. I think as stablecoins become more and more widely used, people are going to have their preferences. Arbitraging between them is obviously going to be one of the biggest sources of volume. Look, yeah, I think as we stay in bear market territory, I think this big green swath will continue to grow. I think once we start going a bit more risk on, we probably see it recede a bit because people will start moving out of stable coins into more riskier assets. But for now, I see this stablecoin swap share probably staying pretty consistently growing over the next few months. But we don't know what's going to happen. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next week we get the ceasefire we've been waiting for, and all of a sudden everything goes green again. We forget about stablecoins entirely. I'm going to push on through to the state of Solana in a tweet. Today's tweet comes from none other than Mr. Cash Danda. Cash coming in saying, shit like this makes me love Solana twice as much. Obviously, talking about the Solana Foundation's new effort to tighten security across the network and basically make DeFi safer for everyone. So I would agree with that. I think everybody on chain is looking at this right now. Everybody is thrilled with the initiative that the Solana Foundation has come out with. And for me, that really summarizes what everyone on Solana is feeling right now. So hats off Cash for putting it so succinctly.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to Cash. He's amazing. And yeah, I mean, he's right. They're taking the right steps forward. And I'm excited for Solana DeFi. I'm bullish on it.
Yeah, likewise. Thomas, I think that's all we have time for, but I believe you've got a plug for us for the big picture next week. I think probably the one of the biggest guests you've ever had. Do you want to kind of run me through what's going on that side?
Yes, so please, everybody turn in next Thursday. We got 11 a.m. Eastern time. We've got the big picture. It's going to be me, Jack, and we've got our guest James Safer. So I'm incredibly excited to hear from him. You know, I've been following him for years, been listening to him for a long time. So to have someone like him come onto the show is going to be incredible. He's from Bloomberg Intelligence. So yeah, I mean, these the big picture has been a fantastic show, right? So I'm excited. I get just as excited about that as I do for this stream. And you know, we had a great one with Mike Reed. If you guys want to catch up on that one before next week, but yeah, I mean, as always, like this was fantastic catching up. This is a good way for me to start my Friday over here. The newsletter was fantastic, Finn. But yeah, any final words that you want to leave us with?
No, just yeah, get ready to listen to James Seyfarth next week. He's you know, one of the sharpest minds that keeps an eye on crypto as well as everything else. So whatever he says, it's going to be worth listening to, I think. But yeah, otherwise, I'm going to wrap up the stream there. Thomas, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll catch up next week.
Yep. Thanks so much, Finn. Thanks all.